edition of the Contractor's Secret Weapon weekly podcast with your hosts, Dave Negri. This program is dedicated to helping contractors, remodelers, painters, roofers, roof cleaners, and business owners in the construction industry gain an unfair advantage over the competition. This program supplies you with information that the competition doesn't even know exists. This session brought to you by ContractorsSecretWeapon.com.
Before we get into the conversation with you, I just want to do a shout out to our sponsors who help promote Contractor's Secret Weapon and just some of the things that they have in store for you, our listeners. Hey, is your phone ringing enough? Do you want it to ring more with highly motivated and qualified buyers that contact you, the contractor, directly? No more waiting for the phone to ring. Just answer that phone. Best Home Services leads are dedicated to making your phone ring with motivated buyers that call you directly. There's no obligation to talk with them. Just go to ContractorSecretWeapon.com/money. Fill out the form to secure your discount on the setup fee. Do it today. This special will not last forever. Check them out at ContractorSecretWeapon.com/money.
Running a small business is no easy task, and I should know because I had a service company for almost 10 years. I am the founder of a software called Radius Bomb, and it's unbelievable. And for all the listeners of Contractor's Secret Weapon, we have a special offer for you to check out. If you want to send hyper-targeted, laser-focused, super personalized postcards to your exact prospects using a map while sitting in your underwear, then go to ContractorSecretWeapon.com/Radius Bomb, and we'll give you your first 100 postcards for free. Just go to ContractorSecretWeapon.com/Radius Bomb.
Hey, this is Dave Negri with Contractor's Secret Weapon. Today I've got a really fun guest for you today, and his name is Gary Sirak. He's been helping other people achieve their American dream for the last 35 years. He is president of Sirak Financial Services of Canton, Ohio, a company founded by his father, Stan Sirak, in 1957. And the company will celebrate 60th anniversary this year. Gary has written 2 books. First, If Your Money Talked, What Secrets Would It Tell? And this book is about personal finance and the most common mistakes people make with their money. And so many people make the same mistakes again and again and again with their money that Gary decided to do something about it. The second book, the book we're going to talk about today, is The American Dream Revisited. Ordinary People, Extraordinary Results. It's a deeply personal subject for Gary. While it's true, it was a serendipitous conversation in a coffee shop that spurred on him to write this book and the idea and the beliefs of the book that have been with him for his entire life. So I just want to welcome you, Gary, for being with us today.
Thank you, Dave.
And so I love the part about your book was thought about at the coffee shop. It's like so many of those businesses that were put together on a napkin.
Well, kind of. I'm addicted to mochas, and I really am. And between work and my home, there are 4 coffee shops that I frequent. So I kind of rotate them as they all make different ones. They all taste different. They use different varieties of chocolate and coffee. But I literally stop every day at one of them. And I was in a place called Karma Cafe one morning, sitting down, just having my mocha, thinking about my day, my week, my month, my life, whatever I was on that day. I mean, I never really remember that. But as I was sitting there, 4 college students sat down right behind me, Dave. And they started talking about the American dream, which really piqued my interest because I've always had an interest in the American dream. So I heard them, and I kind of slid my chair a little closer to them. My back was to them. I wouldn't hear what they were saying. And then very quickly, the American dream was referred to as the American disaster. And 3 of them were really negative. They talked about college debt, credit card debt, tough job market, all these things that were negative. And then finally, the one person who hadn't said anything said, listen, I don't really agree with you guys. I think, life's good. I'm going to pay my college loans. I'll pay my credit cards. I'm going to have a good life. He said, I feel like I'll get a good job. And they shut him down in a matter of seconds. And he never said another word. But the conversation was just very ugly. I tell people that day, and this is a true statement, I left Karma Cafe with some really bad karma. It was just a very negative experience. I was very disappointed, and it bothered me. And about 4 nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night and decided I was going to write a book to refute their opinions. And I just believed that they weren't right, and there's no reason in the world to be that young and that negative. And it just really disturbed me.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And while you were talking about that, the 4 people, it was kind of interesting that 25% of the people were positive.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it really runs close to that 80-20 rule all the way around, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's wild.
And it really is off of that 80-20 rule. Pareto's law.
Yeah,
amazing.
It is.
Accurate that man was a long time ago.
Yeah, and everything still comes, there's the 80-20, and it keeps, and you break it down and down and down and farther. It just gets crazy with the numbers. But so you got to write your book, and what were some of the highlights in there that helped you I mean, it was pretty good perspective in a sense where you got to hear both sides, and it piqued you to really to move in a direction to refute it. So what were some of the things that really got your attention during that conversation?
Well, a couple things that happened. I realized that I needed to find people that had achieved their American dream. So what I did is I started asking friends, acquaintances, who was the most interesting person they know or they knew that's still living. Who do they know the most interesting person in their life that's still living that I could talk to? And people started throwing names at me, and they said, well, what about? And I said, well, the American dream. I'm writing this book. And I told them a little bit of the story and said, oh, I know this lady in California. I know this guy in Chicago. So I started getting names of people all across the country. And a guy in England, and a guy that migrated here from South Africa, and just fascinating. I ended up doing 25 interviews, Dave.
Wow.
And I took the 25, and I picked 13 of them that I felt most congruent with. I felt like they were the ones that fit. They were in the model of what I was really trying to achieve. And so each one after another felt like they were in the right place. So I ended up with 13 stories. And it was kind of unique in how it all came together because I really hadn't planned any of this except I woke up in the middle of the night thinking I better write a book. So the interviews were very interesting. The 12 that I didn't use for a whole host of reasons. Sometimes I didn't like the credibility or lack of credibility. There were some things that just didn't feel right or sound right. And I deep sixed those. And the people that I ended up with, I had a very nice feel about, and I was able to fact check them enough that everything they said was true.
That's wild. So how long did it take for you to pull this all together?
Close to a year.
Close to a year.
Yeah.
And what was the most, out of all those people, whose story was the most interesting?
Well, it's funny. There are 3 that I always think about, and one of them is a man who actually became a friend, a dear friend, had survived 7 Holocaust camps.
Oh, wow.
And not only did he survive them, but he ended up coming to Canton, Ohio. By the way, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I'll throw that in.
Okay.
Anyway, coming to Canton, Ohio, and being a physician and taking care of people in this town. And I got to know him because I was on a basketball team, and he was the team physician for the basketball team, although he knew absolutely nothing about basketball. He did understand when you got beat up what he had to do. And when you weigh what I weigh, you get knocked around a bit. So I just became very friendly with him. And then later on, he became a client, and I got to know his story. Fascinating man. So that story clearly resonates. There's another man that I found equally interesting. He was an old order Amish farmer. And at he had an 8th grade education. And he and his wife and 2 kids left the order, which is a very traumatic experience, and moved to Canton and started a company. And he did this with no money or anything, and just all on a leap of faith. And at the peak of his business success, he had $186 million in sales, 1,900 employees, 13 locations across the country. I mean, just fascinating what he was able to achieve.
Wow.
So those are a couple that really stand out, but there's another one I always find incredibly interesting, and she's actually down your way. She's in Jacksonville. Her name is Pegeen Echeverria, and Pegeen was brought up in the Bronx, and she was a girl gang member,
Wow.
a Puerto Rican girl gang member. And her story of how she escaped the gang and how she turned into the person she is today a great story, and a wonderful person, by the way.
So every single person that you talk to, and I think where you were really trying to make the point was that everyone has a story, and everyone can overcome the odds if they choose to.
Yes, and that is exactly correct. And every single person in my book had adversity, had trouble, nothing was easy for any of them, and they all overcame them.
It's kind of interesting. I've said this to color up. I'm not even talking straight today. A couple of other people, and it seems like that in our society today, people look at success and they see the top of the iceberg, and the base of the iceberg is all the trials and tribulations, all the hard work, all the sweat, all the tears, and everything that got them up to a certain point of where you or I see them. But the interesting thing is, for those people who are the iceberg that we're looking at, they still see themselves like a halfway point.
Yes, they really do. Actually, one of the key points in the book, and I found this unique once I really sat down and did all these stories, I was looking for points where there were links between the different people.
Okay.
And one of them I came up with was that the people that I interviewed all had an amazing ability to not just look forward and see what they hadn't accomplished, but to look where they came from. And their sense of achievement and what they'd accomplished, once we started talking and they looked back where they started from, remarkable how they would think in terms of that. And a lot of them said, gosh, I haven't thought about this in years, but yeah, I started out, it was really tough and all that. And I said, yeah, look where you are now. And he said, I just haven't done that in a long time. He said, it really helped rebuild my self-esteem and my self-worth. And it made me feel proud to look at all the things I've accomplished. He said, because sometimes, and this one person in particular was talking about what he hadn't achieved.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden we're talking and I realized we got on my topic, which I love to go back and see where everything started from. I mean, I look at how my dad started, I look at how I started, I look at how lots of people start and what they've accomplished. It's just a remarkable journey backward, and fun journey too, by the way. And that's what I found in this book. All these people were much more backward based than forward based, which is really very interesting.
I'm taking a note here. That's really interesting that you said that, because I think that people are just, they don't really think about what they've achieved. They think about what they haven't achieved, or there's so much more to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we get lost in that. And that's kind of funny, because I'm in that process my own self. I think we all go through it at different times, or all the time, just at different stages. And I was talking with my wife this morning, and I'm putting together this webinar, and I'm going, so I'm doing it, and I'm going, and then I started thinking about, introducing myself in a sense, who are you? And then I started looking at all the stuff that I've written, and I'm going, hey, I have done a few things, but you don't look at it from that standpoint. You're thinking about, I could do so much more, or I haven't done this yet. It's pretty wild.
Well, and that is exactly the point. So I'm a financial advisor. I help people with their money. I help them. Right now I'm helping a ton of people with their retirement, or helping them gain money so they can retire.
Yeah.
And what I find out is I'm also a cheerleader. In a lot of ways, I'm inspirational to them, because they're stuck and they don't know who to talk to, and they talk to me and they say, wow, you're really fun to talk to because you inspire me, or you make me feel better, I sleep better at night, which are all very nice things to say, and I appreciate it. But I also find out the reason they say that is because I get them to go back and see where they've come from and where they are now, and it just makes them feel better. I've got a guy right now going through a divorce, which is really tough.
Yeah.
And I've been on the phone with him a few times now, helping him because his self-esteem has gotten kicked in the gut, and he's really down. And I said, wait a minute, look at who you are, what you've accomplished. Look at how cool your kids are. I said, that didn't happen by accident. I said, you have one person rejecting you, and that's true, but there's 300 million people out there that don't know you, and some do, and the ones that know you really care about you. I said, so don't focus on the one that doesn't.
Wow. That's amazing. That really is, man, that's such a great thing right there, because we do get stuck in. I mean, I don't want to downplay it too much, but we do have like our own little pity parties.
Well, I've been there.
Yeah,
So,
I get there from time to time, and I go, I can't afford to be here. I need to go somewhere else. But I think it's just part of our human nature, where we just have a tendency to go backwards instead of looking too far forward. I mean, it's just really weird on how it just all comes together, and I like the way that you've been presenting that, and I'm sure your book really demonstrates that, especially with each one of these stories of these people who have, come through, not a bad place. Well, I mean, in the beginning, it probably was a bad place. And I think we all start off in different places, and we can consider it good or bad, but it's challenging. Let's put it that way.
Clearly challenging, and you're right. And it's funny, someone asked me, what do all these people have in common? And I could say, well, I can tell you one thing. When they all started, it was all about food, clothing, and shelter.
Yeah.
It wasn't about being rich. It wasn't about making a ton of money. It was just, can I provide for my family?
Yeah.
What do I need to do to provide for my family? How do I get that accomplished? That's really where we started at. And quite frankly, that's kind of how it went down. So we're looking at this and saying, if that's the case, these people had something very much similar to everybody else I've ever met who was just starting out. And that's, you got to start somewhere. And when you start, you don't start at the top. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. That's just how this game goes.
Yes, that's amazing. I know, because it's, I look at kids going through school, especially my grandkids. I've got one that just graduated. She went into high school. And I'm going, awesome, you went from the top of your class to the bottom of the totem pole again. I said, then you'll graduate high school, you go into college, you'll graduate at the top of your class and go to the bottom of the totem pole. And in each stage of our life, that's what we go through. As we reach a pinnacle, and then we start something new, and we got to start at the bottom. We have to, there's no place, how are you going to learn?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Now, how do you learn? So it was another point that came out in the book loud and clear, was all these people had failed. And sometimes they failed a lot,
yes.
and multiple times. And they all had the same response. I said, well, how did you overcome failure? I said, we didn't have a choice. It's food, clothing, and shelter, Gary. We didn't have a choice. Failure wasn't an option.
Yes.
Delay was an option, but failure not an option. We were going to make this thing work come hell or high water. And they did.
Yeah, that's so true. Failure is not an option. It's the only time you fail is when you fail to get up and start over again.
Exactly.
I know. It's kind of funny. I was thinking the other day, and I'm going, I've been in business for myself so long. The other day, and it wasn't too long ago, and I think we all go through this at certain times. I was really sick. And, of course, it doesn't matter whether you're in business for yourself or not. When you're sick, it doesn't matter. You just do what's got to get done, And so I said to somebody, I says, these are times like this when I wish I had a job, when I can call in sick.
Yeah. Oh, I know. There are many days where I've felt the same way. I have lots of people around me. We have a pretty good-sized staff. But quite frankly, there's things only that I can do.
Right.
And some days I don't want to do them. I just said, can't you do that? And they said, no. I said, you sure you can't do that? No. So I do them, and then I say, I really need to teach them how to do those things. So if I don't feel like coming in, I can actually do that.
Right. And that's another part of the process. That's all it is.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's really how you replicate yourself and get somebody else in position to take over for you. You just teach them your tricks.
Yep. That's it. That's pretty amazing. So in the course of your book, what were some of the things that were eye-openers for you?
Well, here's an interesting one. I interviewed a guy named Dukes. Dukes lived in South Africa, grew up in Johannesburg, and moved to the States because at the time he's a Indian living in South Africa, which had all kinds of issues. And there was violence everywhere. He saw so many people injured. And when I interviewed him, and he came to America with like $1,000 and turned out to be very, very successful. In fact, actually owns a mini mart and a drive-through, and he's just a super nice guy, charitable as can be. A couple kids, both of them are going into med school, and it's very, very interesting talking to him. When I talked to him, though, the main reason he came to America was freedom. He said, Gary, I needed freedom to vote. I needed freedom to have a chance to get a job. He said, there, I would have been stuck in a system. I would have never owned my own business. And the threat of violence was so prevalent every day. He said, I can't tell you how many people, he said, I was knifed in a fight. And he said, I can't tell you how many times that, I had to fight, or how many people I knew were killed in fights. He said, just ridiculous how many people were threatened every day in the streets. And he said, I had to get away from that. So he chose to come here, and he ended up here because he had a relative that owned a motel, and he came here and cleaned rooms for him until he could figure out what to do with his life. So the idea that America provided opportunity is really the point that I think is what I'm trying to make here. America has really been an opportunistic country if you take advantage of your opportunities, and all of the people that I interviewed took advantage of those.
Right. I think, going back to the conversation of, those four guys in the coffee shop that day, one realized that there was an opportunity, and the other three were not really thinking about an opportunity, but thinking about the long-term effect of paying back a loan or a bill or and it was something that they chose to do from the beginning.
Absolutely. And I'll say one other thing about them, and this is, if they were sitting here today, I'd say they really felt sorry for themselves. And that came out really loud and clear also. They really did feel sorry for themselves. And I guess that's okay. You're allowed, but I don't think you want to go into life feeling sorry for yourself. I just don't think that's a real healthy thing to do. I just don't think that comes out with a positive ending.
Yeah, no, because you end up like, there we go, back to the percentages. You're going to end up like 75% of the other people out there that are whining and complaining and just don't see any good in anything.
Right. It's funny, Dave, as I have gotten more successful, and I've done this for a long time, one of my key ingredients that I look for in the clients I work with are making sure they have positive attitudes and that they have a go forward attitude, not a put their head in the sand attitude. I really want people that are progressively moving forward in life, that are exciting and dynamic and entrepreneurial. Those people, I like that. And I have fun with them. I don't do so well with the others. It just doesn't resonate quite so well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that would fit well with your personality, because you sound like that fun-loving guy who loves to help other people and wants to always move in a forward direction, and you give it all. But if they're going to fight you every step of the way, then it's just a losing battle for everybody.
And that is exactly the case. So I've really gotten pretty careful about who I do business with because of that. And someone said, you're pretty exclusive. And I said, I'm not exclusive. I'm just careful. So, I just know who I'm going to fit with and who I'm not going to fit with, and I don't want to waste my time.
Well, I think if more business owners thought about that, from a different perspective on, how well, do we work together instead of going after the end result, which is, which you're not going after. You're going after the solve their problem in place of collecting their money.
Exactly. And I don't try and solve their problems anymore, Dave. I used to do that. That was frustrating. Now I just give them suggestions.
Right.
They have to take action because I can't do that for them. In the beginning, I tried to do that for them, and I'd engineer things, but that was miserable. And so many times I was doing things that they weren't as sold on as I was, and I said, okay, this has got to stop. This is frustrating. So we don't do that anymore.
Like pushing spaghetti, right?
Pretty much. Lead them to water, they have to drink. I can't make them drink.
So this has really been exciting. I love the way you brought this all about. I love the interviews with the people and just the whole bring back, that American dream revisited. And it's just, like you said, American dream revisited, ordinary people, extraordinary results. So there's extraordinary results in each one of us if we dare to dream.
Yes. And take advantage of our opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have them. It's a question of seeing them, recognizing it's an opportunity, and then doing what it takes to make it work for you. And I was with someone the other day, and their son just started in a company, and he started at the lowest end of the totem pole. And he asked me what I thought, and I said, what's he making? He told me. I said, okay, he's not making much. I said, what's he doing? They told me. I said, okay. I said, this is temporary. And they said, why do you say that? I said, he's way too talented to be left in that job for very long.
Right.
They are going to see if he has what it takes to work on the bottom. I said, they're just testing him. I said, so let's find out how this plays out. Anyway, it was funny. It was about 6 months ago, and he got his first promotion. And the promotion was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Someone who was really on the bottom. I mean, they jumped him about 3 levels.
Wow,
And
that's awesome. They saw what he could do, but he was humble enough to start at the bottom.
absolutely. And below where he wanted to stay. And all his friends were making more money, and they were giving him crap, which they would.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm going to do this, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like there's a young guy I know that's a bartender in a bar, and then 15 years later he owns a bar. And it's a very successful bar, and he does really well at it. And he started as a part-time bartender. But, he did whatever that owner had him do, to the point when the owner said, hey, I want to sell the business. Would you buy it because you fit the culture of what I tried to do here?
That's awesome. Yeah, so there's plenty of opportunities. We just have to be willing. We have to look with open eyes, I think.
Yes.
Which is
And don't let people talk you out of it. That's the other thing that amazes me. The people around people, I always mention, and it didn't come out in this book, but it came out in If Your Money Talked, What Secrets Would It Tell? And that's upgrading your friends. So many times I have found people that were so negative around that I just don't want to be around those people, so they stopped being my friends. And I stopped calling them and stopped going out to dinner with them because I didn't want to be around so negative people. It just wasn't fun, and it just wasn't. They complain about everything. I'm thinking, man, this wasn't enjoyable. This is like going to the dentist and getting a tooth pulled without Novocaine.
I know. I've gone out to dinner. I went out to dinner with a bunch of people one day, and I sat next to this one person. And when I left, my wife, I said, listen, if they come out to dinner with us again, great, but don't ever sit me next to him again. Ever.
Right.
And it's like one guy one day, it was kind of funny, I'm at a family function, so I can say this because it's family, and one of my in-laws says, you're lucky, and I go, explain luck to me, I don't understand it, but explain what you're saying. He goes, you can afford anything you want. And I looked and I says, no, I said, I can afford anything you want, but I can't afford anything I want, or everything I want.
It's interesting how perception isn't really reality, is it?
Yeah, it's
Happens
really
all the time. Yeah.
So,
Well, that's I work with some people that are massively wealthy, and I mean massively wealthy, and they're just not happy people. And I don't like hanging around them. I don't really like working with them all that much because they're not fun to be around.
mm-hmm.
And their money's okay as long as I don't have to deal with them on a regular basis, but it's just not a great fit because we just don't have it in common. And so eventually they'll go away, and I don't get sad about that at all because I think to myself, good, I don't have to go deal with this guy anymore. I can think of 3 of them right off the top of my head that have left that maybe I helped usher them out, Dave. I don't know, subliminally maybe I did,
Yeah.
but on, and all I know is, gosh, I don't have to have appointments with these people anymore, and I sort of smile about that.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That is really awesome. Hey, Gary, this has really been awesome, and I just love the whole concept. How can our listeners get in touch with you and maybe just talk to you about your book, or where can they buy your book?
Okay, the book's available on Amazon.
Okay, we'll put a link on our show notes to that.
Yeah, it's on Amazon.com, and it's also on GarySirak.com.
Okay.
And as far as communicating with me, if they send me an email, Rachel gets it, she tells me, and we answer all of them. Okay. We've never not answered an email so far, and in the 4 or 5 years I've been doing this, I've always responded when someone sends me something, and I do get things sent to me. I've gotten some very interesting questions over the years.
I'm sure.
So I say, really? They're asking me that one? I kind of smile and, yeah. Anyway, I never forget, Dave, I was doing this, and I got a call from somebody who wanted to know what kind of refrigerator to buy. And I said,
what?
Yeah, I said, okay, why would you ask me? And they said, well, you're pretty smart about a lot of stuff. We figured you might know something about refrigerators. And I said, you know how much you know about refrigerators? They said, no. I said, absolutely nothing. And they said, okay, well, thank you. I mean, it was just an interesting phone call. So
I'll bet it was.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. That's pretty awesome.
Anyway, so GarySirak.com and Amazon, and that's where my book's available, and they're both on there. And
Excellent.
Yep, works.
I just want to thank you for taking the time to share your story with us, share about your book and the experiences. It's really been a fun time. Thanks, Gary.
Dave, thank you.
Again, I want to thank you for joining us and investing your time with us today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, go to iTunes and give us a shout out. You can also go to our website, www.contractorsecretweapon.com, and check out today's episode and leave us a comment in the bottom of the page. And if you haven't gotten your 15 secret weapon strategies to getting higher-end customers, get it while you're at the website. Also, I want to thank again our sponsors for keeping this podcast alive for your profit-making pleasure. And so go be profitable this week. Work smarter, not harder, and learn how to leverage your time and your knowledge so that you can be more profitable. Again, see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Contractor's Secret Weapon Podcast with Dave Negri. We would love to hear your comments about this episode, so visit us online at www.contractorsecretweapon.com and let us hear your thoughts. If you are listening via iTunes, please leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive, the more other contractors will benefit from this show. Thank you, and see you next time here on the Contractor's Secret Weapon Podcast.